Mornings, Martin's Engine Services. Here on the bench we have some of the components from the Vauxhall 1400cc engine from the stock car, which I mentioned in the video yesterday. As sort of suspected, there's no major horrors inside this engine, just a normal sort of situation that arises with these. Basically warm piston rings caused by the excessive amount of fuel that these engines tend to have put into them to beat the restrictor plate, as I mentioned in the previous video and the one I built a couple of months ago. So this one suffered exactly the same. The piston ring tension is sort of some there, but not a lot, and the oil ring is completely level with the piston. I know they were bad because when I undid number one big end cap, number one piston fell straight out of the cylinder and landed in the tray underneath the engine. And I thought, well, that answers the question about the piston rings. The cylinder head tells the story quite nicely. The guy who owns it said that number two cylinder was oiling up the spark plug. And you can see there's just a wash with oil here. And these are much the same. But considering this, so it was still performing pretty well. He just said it was down a little bit on power and didn't quite have to pull out the corner, but it was still performing quite well. Number two piston, you can see, is very nice and clean on the top. And there was a lot of oil sitting on top of the pistons when I took it apart. There's a couple more here and there. They have got a little bit of carbon on, but nothing much. It's mostly been washed off by the fuel and the oil. Crank's in great shape. There's no real markings on marks and anything. The line on the main bearing here is just, obviously, the main journal is where the main bearing has the oil relief channel in it, so obviously it shines the crank each side but not there. But there's no visible marks. There's just a few visible marks, there's no visible scratches, and very smooth. Quite luckily, one of the bearings here from number three cylinder, this was the top bearing, had actually just started to, or had picked up in the past, and polished up quite well again. Its corresponding bearing was untouched, so the corresponding bearing was basically untouched. So just that one, but the journal is perfect. There's not a mark on it anywhere, so I think it's been quite lucky. And that's the only bearing with any significant marking on it. The others have just got general signs of usage, and that's about it really. So I might give the mains a little polish, and possibly not actually. I might just clean it and leave it as, because I can't see any reason to touch that at all. One thing that was particularly lucky I noticed with this is that since I assembled it last time, it has had a replacement oil pump, and there's two different sides of the bolts in the oil pump. There's two longer bolts that retain the oil pickup pipe to the oil pump here, and there's a shorter bolt that held the oil pipe to the block. Now this one had the right length bolt in, but this one actually had the shorter bolt in from the block, and the longer bolt had been used in the oil pickup support. Now the bolt in the oil pickup support had actually bottomed out in the hole, so the ports, get it in the right order, mine. So the pickup pipe wasn't supported there, but fortunately this bolt here was only in by about 3 threads, but had remained tight. Otherwise, the pickup pipe could have moved and pulled air in around the O-ring. I've no idea what had a replacement oil pump, but possibly maybe even some combat damage, because has been known for these things to have something knocked off on occasion and bits and pieces. So I think, as we all know, the L-stock cars do get, should we say, a fair amount of abuse. So, and that'll be in good order. I'm not going to take that to pieces. So there's no signs of any problems there. And clearly, the oil pump wasn't replaced for an oiling issue, because the bearings tell a story. None of this had ever been apart since last time I stripped it. And apart from this one here that's picked up, say all the rest are fine. There's a few of the others laying there. There's a couple of little marks in them, but nothing out of the ordinary. So it was quite lucky the bolts sort of remained tight there, because I imagine that could have been quite an interesting scenario if the oil pump pickup had started moving and been pulling air in and getting air in the oil. That's the usual sort of things you find inside the block with these when they've had piston ring wear. You get that sort of grey paste that I'd mentioned before in the previous video, and likewise in the sump here you get that kind of, not particularly here, there's that grey irony paste off the piston rings, which seems to get in all the nooks and crannies, and particularly in the top of the pickup pipe here. The oil itself, there wasn't much oil left in this engine because it drained it for me, but what came out was still clean and serviceable. Didn't smell of fuel wash, and pickup's pretty clean as well, so there's no debris up there. And there's no signs of any metal whatsoever, so you know, there's no issues on that score. So it's nothing too serious, just the usual clean up and get it all sorted out. Some new rings and bearings in it, go through it, gaskets and seals, etc. And should be good to go. Hopefully another season's racing. You see, it's been a few colours over the years, and it's been washed a few times. So might go mad and give it another coat of paint for them before it goes off. But so you paint them up, and about half a lap into the first race, it's covered in shell, and that's the end of that. One thing I'm having a great deal of fun getting off is the oil pump gasket here, where it's replaced, is actually a paper type gasket, and the factory GM gasket is a metal. It's a metal gasket, but it's got like a ridge built in with like a gasket sealer on the surface, which seals nicely. I always tend to use those because I know there's no real chance of them leaking or moving. But this paper one wasn't leaking, but there's no way it's going to leak because I think it's actually welded itself to the block. I've attacked it from with several different tools yesterday, and it just doesn't want to come off. So that should be a bit of a fight. Here's something that's a bit of a no-no with engines when they've been painted up and then assembled, is having paint in here where you're going to get oil, because this paint will probably, although it stayed on this last time I saw one, I will make sure all that's off, because what tends to happen is the paint particles can come off and go in with the oil and create all sorts of oiling issues, block the pickup. So it's always make sure there's no paint inside anything like this, and no paint under any gasket surface whatsoever, because the oil will simply literally slide along the paint, along the gasket, and it will leak. And as we know, these old GM engines don't need a reason to leak, because they'll leak for fun. I don't know why it is. I mean, I've worked on these engines, various GM engines, going back to the sort of the original 13S's and 16SH's in the old first of the front wheel drive Cavaliers and Astras, and they all leaked oil. It was cam cover gaskets on the old 8 valves, rear oil seals, front oil seals, breather blocking, and through the whole range of the 4-cylinder GM front wheel drive engines, or in fact the rear wheel drive applications of these units, they always manage to leak oil from somewhere. I don't know whether it's just a traditional thing they're all designed into their engines, I don't know, but it never seems to have stopped it, and it's quite a bit of a standing joke really. Still, that's where I'm up to with this. I say there's no horrors, no real problems. So it's pretty clean inside, so it won't take any serious cleaning this one. There's no sludge deposits or anything, so a good wash and this should be ready to go. I got the tractor all back together again, the engine's all in. Actually runs very, very nicely. There it all is, all sitting back in the hole. It's a nice simple engine to fit. So 4 bolts, stuff the pulley on the bottom, fuel line cable, 2 wires, and away you go. Turn the key and she fired up nicely, so no issue with that at all. The oil seal I've got to change is actually down here behind this throttle control plate, which says held on with a couple of bolts, 2 springs, take it off, and the shaft itself sticks straight out the bottom, so I can take the clip off, slide the oil seal along, pop the fuel tank out if I need to for access. Very straightforward. So I know the gentleman's got needs it back next, or this week he's collecting it, because he's got some work on his small holding, so that little problem can be solved at any point. But the major oil leaks are in the crankshaft seal and the side covers and the oil. Most of a lot of oil was leaking fell off around the oil filler pipe, which was loose into the crankcase. So dealt with all those, cleaned the carburetor out, and she's running very, very nicely. So That's a nice result. So I can finish that off for him when he gets a few moments spare. I can so deal with that, and that's it. So anyhow, that's where I'm up to at the moment, and I'm going to be pressing on today with the stock car engine and more paint on the transit. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this little update on what's going on today, and if I find anything interesting in this engine, I'll bring you back and have a look at it. So thanks very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and bye for now.